What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more new iOS 18.2 features and changes. We're going to talk about the fresh iPhone 17 Air details, iOS 19 features that are already being delayed, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and check out the Apple Den newsletter. Okay, so first off, happy Thanksgiving. This week was very quiet in the world of Apple. We did not get any new software releases, or really any release for that matter, aside from Apple's holiday ad. So they did debut their holiday campaign, which you might have seen on TV. It's all about the AirPods Pro 2 and the hearing aid feature. It was an excellent and emotional commercial. That was the only thing Apple released this week. We did not get any new software or anything like that. Okay, so let's talk about iOS 18.2. So currently we are on beta 4, which I still do believe is going to be the final beta before the RC. I do not think we're going to see a beta 5, but we do have some additional features here that I do want to discuss. And the first thing is inside of the Mail application. So of course, one of the big changes in beta 4 was inside of Mail, how now the corners of the profile picture here are more rounded off for businesses. So you can see it's kind of a rounded off square, whereas when you get an email from a personal person, somebody's personal email, it will be in that circular shape. So contacts are circle, businesses and other emails are just going to be that rounded off square that you see right there. And there were several different opinions on this because we do have kind of a differentiation between contacts and businesses, which is nice. That way you don't have to actually read, the email subject line to be able to know if it's from a business or a contact. But there was also a lot of people who just didn't like this altogether. And the good news is you can actually disable these icons altogether if you would like to. So to do that, you just go into your settings, go down to apps, and then go to the M's for Mail. And then inside of Mail right here, we have under message list, show contact photos. So now if you turn that off, you'll notice that you do not have the icons right there. You don't have the contact photos. So you do have the option to turn that off if you do not like, especially this latest change. If you're not a fan of that, you can turn that off and it will look more like the old Mail application. And of course, you could also tap on those three dots and go to the list view right here in the three dot menu. And you can see that you get the old Mail layout here as well, without the categories and also without the profile photos to the left. Now here's something interesting that stopped working in beta 4 that was working in beta 3. And I didn't even cover this on the channel, but something you can do with iOS 18.2 and the ChatGPT integration is that you can have ChatGPT make an image for you using DALL-E, and you can have that automatically entered into the text box without ever typing anything. So let me show you what I mean. ChatGPT, make an image of a lifelike black cat on a farm. And you can see that when I say that, it will automatically input that into the text box and pull up the compose box down here. So before in beta 3, it would actually show the image, but you can see now in beta 4, for some reason, it's not actually showing the image. Now, if I send that, you can see that it's not just a bug with the preview of that image. It doesn't actually send an image. It just shows this content file right here. So for some reason, that's broken in beta 4, and I hope that does get fixed, but it is a really cool feature that not a lot of people are talking about that I've seen, where you can actually insert images just using ChatGPT, and that will automatically pull up the compose sheet for you right here, and it will also give you suggestions to modify that image automatically. And by the way, you can also do this with text. It doesn't have to be an image. So if I say, ChatGPT, write me a poem about Steve Jobs, but only make it 5 lines. You can see that it will pull up compose and it will put that in there for me. That is going to be such a time saver for me. I use ChatGPT every single day and I've used this so many times recently. So it's awesome you can do that without having to go in and go to the compose and all that. That wastes a lot of time. I like how you can just say it while you're in a message and it will automatically put it in there and use the compose feature. Now in the Safari application in iOS 18.2, if we go into edit right here on our start page, you will see that we have new wallpapers. So I did already touch on these. You can see that we have these different wallpapers right there, but something I did not mention is that these were not available for macOS when it first came out, but they are now available on macOS, and I've been loving having these wallpapers here on the background of my start page. Now there's also a new setting for Safari. So if you go back to your settings and go to your apps and then go down to Safari, and if we go down near the bottom, we have a new section section here for not secure connection warning. So if you want to get a warning when you're connecting to a website that is not secure, basically HTTP instead of HTTPS, you will now get a warning if you turn this toggle on. And then something else new in the music application, I'm not sure when this was added, I just did not cover this here on the channel in iOS 18, but if you go to an album that has multiple discs, you can see it now signifies those discs. It makes them stand out a little bit more by disc. So disc 1 right there, if we scroll down, disc 2, and if we scroll down again, disc 3. So they're separated and it's more obvious, which songs are on which disc. Now I did also want to touch on Image Playground because this will undoubtedly be one of the biggest features in iOS 18.2, at least when it first comes out, because when you first get access to it, it's so much fun to go in here and create images of yourself and all of your, people in your camera roll. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun, but obviously it's not going to be something you use long term all the time. Like it wasn't built to be used for every single week for months. Like that's not what Apple intended this application to be used for. It's meant to just be there for when you need it, for when you want to build, cool photos, funny photos, or if you can use text to describe an image. It's just a cool application and feature to have. It's not really meant to be something that you use every single day. So how often are you using Image Playground? Like what do you use Image Playground for these days? Especially for somebody who used it from day one like I do. Like what are you using it for now and how often are you using it? I'm really curious because once again, when 18.2 comes out to the public, a lot of people are going to be talking about it again. But I do still think that Genmoji will be the biggest feature for the majority of people out there who aren't really into tech YouTube and understand ChatGPT and things like that. They don't care about ChatGPT. A lot of those people are going to love not only Image Playground, but also the Genmoji feature. Also this week in the ChatGPT application, they added a new shortcut action for quickly accessing SearchGPT. So if you have access to SearchGPT, you can now access that via the Apple Shortcuts application. Also in Instagram, you can now send a DM with your live location and more. So if you go to a DM and tap on the plus right here, you'll notice up top we now have location. So you can now share your location with another person for 1 hour. So you can see you get a splash screen that says right here what will happen. And when you share that location and go into it, it will say how much time is remaining. So it says 59 minutes left for me because once again, it only shares your location for 1 hour. But that's a pretty cool addition inside of Instagram. Anyways, back to iOS 18.2 beta 4. When it comes to the performance, really nothing has changed from my last week's Apple Weekly episode. Performance is still excellent. I did go ahead and run another fresh Geekbench test here before I started recording, and you can see we scored a 3551 and an 8783. You can see how that compares to the previous run. So it was actually higher than last week's run, which was obviously higher than when we first released iOS 18.2 beta 4. So performance, really no complaints at all for me. It's easily the best performance so far on iOS 18. And actually, if you look at the single core and the multi-core, that is the highest I've gotten yet. So that's the highest since October 3rd, which was the first time I ran a test on my 16 Pro Max. So that is a great sign. And then when it comes to battery life, you can see on my main device here, which is my 16 Pro, that is now my main device, not the Pro Max. But you can see with my battery life on this device, which I'm running, of course, the public beta of iOS 18.2 beta. So you can see here that past 24 hours, been fine. I have been using my phone quite a bit. And if we go to the last 10 days, I have been using my phone less than last week, but you can see I'm not even getting close to 100% of usage. Like I think on Wednesday was the closest I got this entire week aside from that Monday. But yeah, performance and battery life both are great here on beta 4. Really no complaints. And battery life was something I was really worried about because it was really bad for the first 2 or 3 betas, but it's really gotten better here with beta 4, which is a great sign. Okay, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. So next week will be the first week of December. 2024 has flown by and we should be seeing the RC build of iOS 18.2. So we could see another beta, but I think that's about a 1% chance. I think it's 99% sure that we're going to see an RC next week. So I think that we are going to see that on Monday the 2nd. Now, as far as the final release, this is where things get really tricky because Mark Gurman multiple weeks ago did say that iOS 18.2 is going to release on the week of December 2nd. He didn't say the 2nd itself. himself. He said the week of the 2nd. Now, what's interesting here is that usually Gurman, if he hears something, he'll kind of change what he says. He'll kind of, say, okay, now it's expected the week of the 9th. Well, he hasn't said that. So there's a good possibility that we could still be seeing iOS 18.2 next week to the public. And you might be wondering, how is that possible if the RC has to be out a week before? Well, the RC doesn't have to be out a full week before. It just has to be a couple of days minimum. So there is a world where we see December 2nd being the RC and then the final release later in the week. Again, we could even see that release as late as Friday. It's not, impossible. It's happened before. Do I think it's likely to see a Friday release? No, but it's possible. So I'm just trying to throw out the possibilities out there. Gurman is still sticking to his week of December 2nd release date. We will know by Sunday, usually when he releases his newsletter, if anything changes. So I will relay that information to you over on Twitter or X if it is going to be delayed until the 9th. But, if his original prediction is wrong, then we should see the RC next week and then the final release possibly on December 9th, which is one of the original dates that I predicted a while back. The 9th or the 16th is what I said. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, nobody really knows at this point. It's all just up in the air just for guessing at this point. So either the 2nd or the 9th will be, or the week of the 2nd or the week of the 9th will be when we see the final release of 18.2. So just count on that. And then we should see iOS 18.3 beta 1 come out shortly after, with beta 2 most likely coming in January. So a long stretch if you're going to jump on that 18.3 beta, but that's for another video, another topic. Anyways, moving on to the latest Apple news. This week was very quiet. Like I mentioned in the intro, there was not a lot of news this week, but we did get some very interesting details on the upcoming iPhone 17 Air, which is going to be potentially replacing the Plus model this coming year. So here is what we're hearing now. So the prototypes of this device apparently have a thickness of only 5 to 6 millimeters, and that would make this the thinnest iPhone ever made. Now, these are prototypes, so things can change, but imagine a modern iPhone that is skinnier than the iPhone 6, if you can remember that. That's going to be insane. Now, this might also be one of the first products with the Apple-designed 5G modem, which is going to replace the Qualcomm modem. We're expecting the iPhone SE 4, which is expected in the spring, to be the first Apple product with that built-in 5G modem, but this 17 Air could also have that. And also the camera is said to have a large centered camera bump on the back. So I'm not really sure about a centered camera bump. I'm not sure if that means like in the center of the body or just like in the center of the camera cutouts. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that, but if it's in the center of the iPhone, I believe that would be the first time ever we've seen a center facing like camera on the back of an iPhone. That would look really weird, but that is apparently a possibility now based on this rumor. Now, there are going to be compromises with the 17 Air because of how skinny it is. So it looks like it might only have a single speaker, which is actually going to be in the earpiece, a single camera lens, like I just mentioned, no SIM card tray worldwide, not just in the US, and most notably, a smaller battery. Now, keep in mind, when we hear smaller battery, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get like terrible battery life. Apple obviously optimizes these batteries to perform well despite their size, but that could be a potential compromise. You might not get as good a battery life as maybe the 17 or especially the 17 Pro. But yeah, this iPhone 17 Air is expected to launch next September alongside the 17 and 17 Pro, and of course the 17 Pro Max as well. Just no 17 Plus apparently coming next year. But the Air was not the only iPhone 17 that we got some really interesting details on, because we also heard about the iPhone 17 Pro potentially going back to an aluminum frame. So Apple made a big deal about switching to titanium, and obviously when stainless steel came out, they made a big deal about that as well, all just to now possibly be going back to an aluminum frame. So this rumor, which actually comes from the Information's Wayne Ma, who's been pretty accurate in the past, he says that these could be the first Pro iPhones to feature an aluminum frame, and that the rear might also feature a half aluminum, half glass design. So he says that the rear camera bump is said to be made of aluminum and the bottom half of glass, which of course is needed for wireless charging. Now, we also heard this week from Mark Gurman that Apple has no plans to make AirPods Max 2 anytime soon. So we technically got another round of AirPods Max just recently with the USB-C port instead of Lightning and new colors, but that was it. There was nothing new inside, no chip or anything like that. And now, according to Gurman, that's not expected to happen anytime soon. So if you're wanting to get AirPods Max, especially for the holiday season, you can probably go ahead and get them, because they're probably not coming next year and probably not even the year after that either if you're looking for second gen. Now, Gurman also reported this week about iOS 19, so it's crazy to think that we're only like 6 months away from seeing iOS 19. But anyways, we're already hearing about some delays that are coming with the final release of iOS 19. Now, this is very vague. Gurman was extremely vague in this report, or this little section here, but he said that a large number of additional features scheduled for iOS 19 are already being postponed until spring of 2026, which is when iOS 19.4 debuts. So he didn't say anything about these features, like not one of them. So it's really hard to say, what he's actually talking about here, but the LLM Siri is also expected to come in that 19.4 update. So we might be looking at the biggest point update ever with 19.4 if this actually pans out and everything gets delayed until that update, that spring update. So we'll see, but that's already being rumored right now. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a 25-year-old man parked his 2013 Ford Escape in a New York parking lot before it was stolen. But thankfully for him, he had an AirTag hidden inside of the car. So of course, once he realized it had been stolen, he opened up the Find My app, got the location, and called the police to share the real-time location. And once the police spotted the stolen car, they attempted to stop it, but it fled the scene and led police on a very short-lived pursuit because the driver, who is a 30-year-old female, attempted to flee, but she just ended up running into 5 vehicles and then straight into a police car who had her trapped after that. So after realizing she could not escape, several officers drew their guns and others used batons to break the windows of the stolen car. And eventually the woman driver and the male passenger were both pulled out of the car and arrested. And this was all caught on video, by the way. It was a pretty dramatic video with a lot of people around, which is pretty crazy. I actually saw this on X originally here. So you can see what that looks like. And she was charged with several felonies and misdemeanors, as you can see from this extensive list here, and is currently in jail on $300,000 of bond. And the passenger was also charged with all of these, but he was released ahead of his court date. But without the AirTag and Find My, tracking that stolen SUV that quickly, especially in New York City, would be a much more difficult task. So shout out to that person for putting an AirTag in his car. He is smart, and now is a great time to get those AirTags. I believe they're on sale for a really good price right now on Amazon. So if you want to check those out, I'll leave them linked down in the description below. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, if you did, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's Apple Weekly episode. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.